Welcome everybody. My name is Max. K2MAX is my call. And if you guys do have a call, if you would like to change your name, just left click on the three ellipses up on the upper right hand side of your picture, and then you would just go to rename, and I'll add my call sign in there. Mine is K2MAX. And welcome everybody. This is the Beginning Ham Radio series, and we're sponsored by the Portland Amateur Radio Club. And these are weekly meetings that happen every Thursday at 6 o'clock. It's a series, but there's it's going to be really focused towards beginning ham radio. So we have a topic each week that we'll cover, and we'll do that in the first half hour, and then the rest of the 60 minutes will be available for questions and answers. And if anybody has any questions on the topic or anything related to ham radio, how do I get started? What radio should I buy? Things like that. We will gladly entertain that kind of the next 60 minutes. So tonight's topic is about repeater directories, and essentially kind of also how to program repeater, not how to program, but yeah, essentially how to program repeaters into your handheld. Me? Yes. Wait, who's this? Not yet. We don't see your camera.
To really affect change within the institutions themselves.
He says with this administration change,
and so if you can mute yourself, but feel free to unmute yourself if you have any questions, to kind of keep the noise down. If I hear a lot of background noise from your microphone, I'll go ahead and mute you, but then again, feel free to unmute yourself. So tonight, we have a topic of repeater directories, and Marino, KG7EMV, he's going to walk us through kind of the first half hour, and feel free to kind of ask any questions as they come along. This is going to be kind of an informal session.
All right, so can you guys hear me, Max?
Yep.
All right, good. So welcome all. My name is Marino, KG7EMB is my call sign. I live in Southeast Portland, near the Woodstock area. I've been an amateur radio operator for probably 6 or 7 years. I am a general. I got into ham radio because, like other people, I got interested as a means for communication during emergencies. And from there, I participated to the Portland, City of Portland Bureau of Emergency Management NET classes, which are classes that the City of Portland give to citizens to be in case of emergency on how to cooperate to provide self-help. As part of that, there were some mentioning about amateur radio, and so I progressed to associate myself with the ARES group, Amateur Radio Emergency Service. The ARES service is a section of amateur radio operators that focus also in emergency communication. And generally the local ARES chapters are connected with the government of the county level, and so the local chapter of ARES here in Portland is based on Multnomah County and works in service of the Multnomah County Emergency Management Office. I work in IT. I don't consider myself a super expert in electronics or ham radio. I like the word amateur. I do what I'm interested in doing. So I hope that what I can give you here is of help. And if there is some questions that I cannot answer, I'll be happy to pass it around or point you to the right place. So I guess the topic for tonight is repeater directories. So you're here, you're interested in M radio. Hopefully you progress to the point where you know a little bit what it is about. You go and buy a book and go online and study, and then you take the test, and now you have a license. Your friend told you that for 25 bucks you can buy a radio on Amazon, and so you went out and bought yourself a nice HD, possibly a Chinese HD that costs probably $30. And now you are asking yourself, now what? What do I do? So, as you know, let's start from the general case that, and by the way, as I talk, just make some noise and I'll stop at what I'm saying. If you have any questions, I'll circle back and find you in the gallery view here so that I can answer your question if you have. So you got this radio and now you want to play, right? So basically your radio has generally two modes of operation. One is where you work in simplex mode and you tune your radio to a specific frequency, and then you use it just like a walkie-talkie, and you hope that somebody else is on the same frequency. So also your radio typically has a scan functionality. So once you selected which of the band that you want to talk, generally these radios have are VHF and UHF radios. VHF means it uses the 2-meter band, and UHF means it uses the 70 centimeters band. So you might press the scan button and let the radio go out and try to capture some signals. And then if you hear some activities, then you're going to try to talk. Simplex, it works, but it requires some kind of luck because not everybody's there waiting for you to talk. So you look at the other mode, which is using the radio with a repeater. As we've seen last week, a repeater is generally a device that sits on top of a hill or of a mountain, which allows a device that listens to all the radio traffic coming from one side, let's say, of the mountain profile, and then repeats it immediately to the other side. The end effect of this is that through the use of repeater, you extend your reach. Instead of having a radio that is super powerful, you can use a small radio like a portable radio, and the repeater will hear your signal and then push it on the other side with much more power than you do. Also, because height means a better reach of the signal, um, the repeater will provide a way for you to reach further than your radio propagation would allow. Because let's say you got a mountain range in front of you, some set of hills, and so the repeater, talking from the repeaters at the top of this high point, allows you to talk to the other side, which would not be possible because you got this a body, this geographical barrier. And as we said last week, repeaters require some uh, programming on the radio because you needed to know where the frequency of the repeater is, and you needed to know an offset um, that is the difference between your transmitting frequencies and your receiving frequency that you use on your thing. And finally, you need also to know if the repeater is programmed to use a tone. And the tone, as we we heard the last week during our discussion, is a way essentially to um, protect from radio interference. And it's something that they said on the repeater side to help the repeater not to retransmit just noise or interference. And so they generally ask you to program this tone so that when you press the push to talk button and you talk, the radio, in addition to your voice, also transmits a tone which which tells the repeater, you needed to let this transmission come through because this is real. It's not an interference. So again, you need to know the frequency, you needed to know the offset, and you needed to know the PL tone if it exists. So at this point, any questions so far?
Marino, could you kind of let people know what simplex versus duplex is?
Yes, well, simplex is essentially means one at a time. Is essentially a mode of communication where the band is taken by the party that talks, and the other person, the two cannot talk at the same time. And simplex actually is half a duplex communication. So only one party can communicate at the time. Instead, with the repeaters, you can have a full duplex communication, which is both parties can listen and talk at the same time. Do you agree with this definition, Max, or perhaps you have a better one?
Yeah, I mean, that sounds good. So simplex really is like, as kids, if we had walkie-talkies, that's kind of what we remember. You push the button down, you talk, and then you release up on the button, and then you listen. Whereas duplex, you can still only talk or listen. However, duplex uses two frequencies. And so when Marino was kind of referring to the frequency plus the offset is what you add or subtract to the frequency. And I'm sure Marino will go into this, but for those, I just want to make sure everybody understands what simplex versus duplex is.
When you
Right.
talk about the frequency of a repeater, are you talking about the frequency that it receives on or the frequency it transmits on?
Generally speaking, we talk about the frequency where the repeater transmits and where you, on your radio, you needed to listen. In a way, think about this. If you had like an FM radio in front of you, what do you do to listen to the radio? You just tune the radio to a frequency where the radio is transmitting, right? Does that make sense? Yeah. So,
One
so-
more question.
go ahead.
So is the repeater the same thing as duplex? You said simplex and duplex.
Simplex and duplex are communications mode. A repeater is a device that that works in full duplex, that provides you
Okay.
full duplex communication. Yeah.
Okay, thank you.
Right. So at this point, you said you're going to ask yourself, how do I get to know, where to go to listen to this thing? Again, you can try to listen with the scan button. You can ask your friends around, the people that pointed you. Somebody will say, hey, I got an Excel spreadsheet with all the frequencies, or I'll give you a list of the repeaters that are here in Portland. And they start introducing you to the subject that way. But let's say that you do not have that luck and you're just there by yourself, so let me share my screen and let's go on a little journey here together. Do you guys see my screen?
Yep.
All right. So we do the here I'm sitting on my computer, my Windows computer. I am using Google, and I'm going to say amateur radio repeaters in Portland, Oregon. Let's see what happens. Boom. And immediately we get a list here. And you can see a list of the first link points to something called repeaterbook.com, which is, let's click on it, is the answer and the subject of today's talk. And as you can see here, we get a list of 42 repeaters found at or near Portland. And so we get a bunch of information. But for the sake of a little bit of discussion, let's forget for repeater book. We'll get back to that. Let's look at what other hits we get here. The first one is Park Repeaters, Portland Amateur Radio Club, which is the radio club that sponsored this event here. And so let's go to the website. And so this is a radio club. And there is a page dedicated to repeater. And guess what? These people are posting the frequencies of the repeaters and with the offset, and also some information regarding the tone, the PL tone. So for example, this means this is a repeater located in Mont Scott. Mont Scott is not too far away from me. It's in Southeast Portland. It's running a Yaesu System Fusion repeater, la, 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 a bunch of technical gobbledygook. But what is important here is the transmitting frequency of the repeater is 147.180. There is a standard offset of, no, actually, it's, is it a minus or a plus there? Well,
Plus.
there is a plus offset of 600 hertz, and this determines the frequency that your radio will use to transmit. So in other words, the repeater is sending out radio signal at this frequency. The frequency where it listens for your communication is a plus of 600. So it would be 147, 780 megahertz. We also see here that this repeater requires a tone of 103.5 hertz. And this is this tone that you needed to program to your radio to tell the repeater, hey, when you hear my conversation, you needed to let it through. Otherwise, the repeater without that sub-audio tone will not retransmit your communication. But again, this is a page, and we can see that this radio club, Portland Radio Club, is doing an effort to publicizing the repeaters that they have. Also, good thing here, there is like a schedule that tells you when to come and listen to these frequencies. And so you can see that every Monday at 7 p.m., the club has a park net, which is a meeting on the air. So essentially, all the associates of the radio club meet on Monday night at 7 p.m. and they will have a meeting on the air where they check in. All right, so this is another example. Let's take a look at other things. Let's see, this is another, let's progress down the list. We see here arrg.org. This is another good one. So this is Amateur Radio Relay Group. This is a group that is a club that manages repeaters. And so they are not a radio club per se, but they are a repeater group, a group of volunteers that put up and installs repeaters around the state and then maintains them for the purpose of communication. And so these people have a local directory, but also if we go down here, this link, we can see all the repeaters they have, okay? And so they tell you here, you know, if you are in the Portland metro area, our repeaters are at these frequencies. And so we see here, they have one repeater on the 2-meter band and 2 repeaters on the 70 centimeters band. And again, there is the offset and the tone.
Marino, I have a question for you.
Yes.
Why do they just give you one frequency and an offset? Why don't they just give you both frequencies?
And the answer is because generally the offset is standard. And I believe, as we've seen before, that is on the 2-meter band is 600 hertz. And so it is a standard to the point that the manufacturer of the radios, they program the function into the radio. So when you needed to program this offset, you just say if the offset is negative or positive. And then since the offset is standard, the software on the radio applies the difference, the 500 or 600 hertz, right?
So if I know the repeater frequency, for example, that top one, 147.04, then I don't need to know what the other frequency is. I can just make sure that the radio is showing a plus sign.
Yes. Yes.
Okay.
I have a question. What does CC1 mean under tone?
That is a good question.
So that is a digital mobile radio. So most radios, like the Baofeng, the Yaesu FT60, they're all analog, very similar to an FM or AM radio. But a lot of businesses and even amateur radio were moving over into digital. And so digital radio, which we'll cover more in depth in a later topic, has more settings than just an offset and a tone. They also have things called color codes. And so it's like a tone in that if you don't have the correct color code programmed in, then you wouldn't necessarily be able to talk to other people on that same frequency.
Okay.
But again, it's just
That's
digital.
fine.
Yep.
Thank you for clarifying that. I've seen
Yeah.
that on the list before and I've been wondering. Thanks.
Yeah.
Cool. So again, a quick view here shows that these are the repeaters maintained by this repeater group. And so you can see they have stuff in the Portland area, around Mount Hood, and then around the South Saddle, which is on the Oregon coast, and then some in Eastern Oregon. And sometimes these repeaters are linked together. So while, let's say, with a small radio, you typically, you would be able to reach the hills here or maybe Mount Hood, but definitely not reach, let's say, Eastern Oregon, Baker City, or La Grande. Let's say that this La Grande repeater is connected via the internet or via radio frequency to a repeater on Mount Hood. When you talk to Mount Hood, if they are linked, you are also heard down in La Grande. And so sometimes this causes some surprise because you think you're talking to a local repeater and then you hear somebody say, "Hey, I'm in UK." And it says, "Whoa, how's it possible that?" Well, it's possible because the local repeater that you are talking to is interconnected with other repeater, sometimes in a geographical area like Oregon, let's say up and down the high-5 corridor. So you can hear somebody in Portland talking to somebody in what is called uh, down in Eugene or even further down. Uh, or sometimes through the magic of the internet, the local repeater in Portland, and there is one here in Portland that is famous for that, is connected to other repeaters nationally and internationally. So sometimes, you talk to a repeater here and voila, you are communicating with somebody on the other side of the world. Anyway, so I'm digressing here. But so this is another page that shows you how this information is provided to you. And so who manages repeaters? Sometimes there are radio clubs like Park. Sometimes there are so-called repeater groups like this one, ARRG. And sometimes it could be entities. It could be like counties, police, sheriff's offices, or the Red Cross, or perhaps it could be just individual. Some people that like to, to play with this stuff, and they decided to spend their own money on this, and they set up a repeater for the benefit of everybody. So, all right. Let's take a look quickly at another place where these frequencies are shared. Sometimes you hear somebody tell you, "Hey, I got this repeater from Multnomah Aries," and let's see, Multnomah County Aries. So this is the local amateur radio emergency service, the emergency communication website for Multnomah County. And they have along these frequency lists and radio programming templates. And so you go down to this page and you see that there is a document, so-called template, that is available in PDF form or maybe as a CSV file, comma separated values, or also in a format that is proper to use with something called chirp. And we're going to get to the later. But let's take a look inside. And again, this is a document where you will find the frequencies and then the tone and stuff like that. And so you can see that there are some repeaters. Let me just make this bigger. Can I? Yeah. We can notice some things like there is a national VHF calling frequency. Look at that. What is this? Max, you want to talk about the calling frequency?
Yeah. So on each band, and a band being, for example, the 2-meter band, which runs from 144 to 148 megahertz, versus the 70 centimeter band, which runs from 440 to 470, I think. There will be one or more calling frequencies. So a calling frequency is essentially anybody that watches Star Trek, a hailing frequency. It's a frequency that's kind of known to be the starting place. And if you are from out of town or you're taking a drive down the freeway, it's a great frequency to just listen to see if there's anybody else that's talking or anybody else that's calling CQ. And so for
Simplex communication.
yes, simplex. So this would just be one frequency you're listening on and transmitting on. So for the 2-meter band, the national calling frequency is 146.52. And that's a really great frequency to just tune in if you're going to take a trip somewhere.
Yeah. In fact, I was just looking for my little sticker that says I'm listening on 5.2. That is a Kenwood makes some bumper stickers that say, you know, I'm listening. You put it on your car and you say I'm listening on 146.52. Anyway, so we see these calling frequencies listed here, and then we see that some frequencies here are labeled with some word like MC1, MC2, MC3. What is this? MC is Multnomah County 1, Multnomah County 2. So what we see here is a list of local repeaters that the emergency communication team has established as with their own code name, so that while they operate, they say, everybody, if something happens, meet on the resource net on the MC2. And so all the members of this group know that if disaster strikes and they needed to go and report their availability, they needed to go to the resource net on MC2. And where is that? It's here on 147.28. And it has a standard offset of 600, and there is a tone. Of course, some of these repeaters are used, are public repeaters and are used by everybody. In case of emergencies, in case of emergency, these emergency groups have priority. And the agreement with the repeater owner is that they can control the repeater and sort of, in a sense, commandeer the transmissions because they needed to do real emergency work. All right. So
Marino, this is Nick, KI7PTT. Yeah, that's similar to, I understand that the cell phone towers, if they are operational, they will shut down their bandwidth and open up bandwidth for emergency personnel only. So even though they're functioning, they're not being used by anybody but emergency personnel. So it's a similar kind of thing.
Yeah, except that in the case of these amateur radio, if you don't know the rule, you might still go there and, you know, sort of bother people, but they will be very curt with you and they will tell you, sorry, move along because this is an emergency and so on. Anyway, so this document that I'm showing has repeaters for Clackamas County, for Clark County in Vancouver, Washington, for Columbia County, and Washington County, you know, Beaverton, Hillsborough, and so forth. So this template here is a good place to look for information, such repeaters, okay? That but it's not the only one. So let's go back in here so here we can see the sum of the, we can see that says use this file, the CSV file, if you want to program using RT system software. Use this other file for chirp if you want to use the chirp software. So what are these things? These are pieces of software that can take a CSV file and program it on your radio. So let's have a little side discussion about chirp. So what is chirp? Chirp is a open source software, and this is the chirp.danplanet.com is the website where you can find it. It is a free open source software for programming your amateur radio. It was started by a guy in Hillsborough, so it's a very much a local product, and we are lucky to have such a great guys. And it's a piece of software you download for free, and then you feed them a bunch of frequencies, and then if you have a programming cable to connect your computer to your radio, this software basically programs the radio for you.
And if I could point out, Reno, anybody that has purchased the $20 to $50 Baofeng radio, this by far is going to be the easiest way to program your radio. Yes, you can program a Baofeng radio by punching the keys on the front, but set aside a few hours because and maybe some aspirin too, because it is a very frustrating radio to program. With this free software, it literally takes just a few minutes to program it on your laptop or your desktop, and then just upload it to your radio.
All right. Yes. And so, what radios are supported? There is a list of manufacturer models. We can see that, for example, the Chinese radio, they're very inexpensive, called Baofeng. They're super well supported. All sorts of different variations that are on the market. And then we can take a look at some other names, like, let's see, we can go down here. We can see.
The Yaesu, the FT60 is probably the most popular radio, and that is supported also.
Yeah. So if you have to buy a radio, the radio that we heartily recommend is FT60R. Why? Because it's a very good quality radio. It is an entry-level radio, and it's very simple to operate and to program. It does not disappoint. It has a little words because it's kind of old, like it could have a better battery, but other than that, it's better than newer radios that you can buy now. But anyway, the big names in radios are ICOM, and you can see some here, Yaesu, you can see here, and Kenwood. And Kenwood is here. So with this software, you download it, and then you can essentially program your radio. But wouldn't it be better if you, instead of having to enter those information by hand, had a way to essentially put them in? Well, some people make it easier for you. Like if you remember, we went to the Multnomah County site. Here they provide the file for you, and so with this and chirp, you just read in this file, you program to the radio, and now you have the same frequency program that you've seen in this template. Okay. But there is also other ways. And so at this point, we introduce the topic half an hour later, that of repeater directories. So there are some people that over time have focused on keeping this information. Before the internet, this was mostly a matter of having a book, like the old phone book, that was sold, and where all these the lists were present, but not anymore. Now things have, we're on internet times. But just for sake of discussion, let's mention that one famous repeater directory is called is provided by the ARRL, which is the Radio Relay League, the Association of Operators here in the States. And let's see if I can get there. And so they have an app, and they have also books. Our Finder. Come on.
And this one is in particular is a subscription based. So they do charge $12 or $13 a year, which is fairly comparable to the ARRL book that you see there on the right-hand side that was printed every year in the past. And every year I would go to Ham Radio Outlet and buy one of the books. And it typically has all bands and all states and Canada in it as far as repeaters. But like everything else book related, they do get outdated very quickly. So like Marino mentioned, everything now is available online, making it a lot more convenient.
And so let's go to this repeater book. Repeater book is this website that you see here. It is a site that requires you to register. You register with your call sign and you put your super secret password and you go to this and then you access the site. First of all, you enter, you see this picture and say, interesting, looks familiar. And then it says Stonehenge Tower, Portland, Oregon, courtesy of Garrett Dow. Well, the guy who put up this repeater book is a firefighter from Gresham, and is this guy, KD6 KPC. So again, another person here local that does this. All right, so there are several things that you can do, but the one that is most enticing, I think, is the search your repeaters by state. And so we are in Oregon. We click on the map. You get here, and you see that you have some choices. You can choose the bands. Let's say I want to see all the repeaters in the 2-meter band. You click here, and you get a list of repeaters. These are all repeaters in Oregon on the 2-meter band with the information, the frequency, the offset, and the tone, and the location. And so at this point, you can start also the capabilities. You can see if some repeaters are just FM repeaters or if they have some digital capabilities like a D-Star or an Echolink that interoperates and connect the repeaters over the internet with other, or this one, IRLP. These means that the repeaters, this repeater is connected to through the internet with other repeaters and interlinked. Let's take, let's see, Hood River. Let's pick this one. If we click on the frequency, then we get a specific record for this, and tells you who is the owner of the repeater, what is the call sign of the repeater, whether or not it is on the air or off air, and general location and the radius. Unfortunately, I picked somebody who is off air, so let's take a look at this one, Merrill Point in Coos Bay. Okay. If you look at the map, it shows you where it is located and so forth. Another interesting part is that you can sort these by frequencies. These columns are sortable. And so you can start from a low frequency and go down the list. It's interesting that you will see sometimes the same frequency being present at multiple locations. Why? Because each one of these repeater has a limited geographic reach. And so hopefully this one on this frequency in Coos Bay is not interfering with this one in Gates in Marion County, and so on. Another interesting thing another interesting game I like to play is I sort them by location. And if you sort them by location, you group them in such a way that you realize where are the desirable spots. Sometimes it becomes evident that there are locations where there are multiple repeaters. Why? Because it's a high vantage point, and more than one operator decided to locate the repeater at the same high point.
How do you know if they're linked together?
It's not easy. I think you needed to start researching, understand you start from the call sign, you look who is the manager of the repeater, and then possibly find if they are part of a repeater group. And then like the ARRG that we saw earlier on, right? You remember the ARRG that we saw?
Yeah.
This is one. Another good another good repeater group is the W7PRA, and these guys are based, I think, in Corvallis, in Eugene. But look how many repeaters these have. I mean, here in Oregon, we're really lucky to be playing such a rich background, so to speak, playground.
And Marino,
Yes.
is it considered okay to just listen in to any of these, or as long as we don't interrupt the people that are on it, or is it really more or less by invitation?
Generally, they're all public. Generally, they're all public, and you are invited to listen in and participate. And it's very rare that you get sent away. It's
And
interesting. Yeah, go ahead.
I was just going to say, I'd like to point out that listening first is one of the best practices for ham radio. Once you listen to a repeater frequency for a while, you'll actually get kind of like what the etiquette is for how to break into conversations. For example, typically the best way to break into two people that are talking on a repeater is just to insert your call during kind of one of their natural pauses. And then you can also just listen and not transmit at all if you wanted to on any frequency, repeaters included, except for the old cellular frequencies. And any radio that's been produced in the last 30 years will have those frequencies blocked anyway, so it's not really a worry.
Sometimes the repeater owners, they give you some hints, like this guy that put like an opinionated piece and says, this is a very large system. Please don't use repeater jargon. That means kindly do not perform radio checks or no audio checks. So in other words, it's saying, if you want to be polite, please don't do these things when you are using this repeater. This is an exception. I don't see this spelled out like this many times, but some people have some etiquette, and so they tell you what their etiquette is, and you just abide by that. All right.
This is Kirk. In the United States, you can listen to just about anything. The
Yep.
restrictions come to transmitting. So if your radio will dial to it, you can listen.
And actually, I can also add it to this repeater book site has a FAQ section, frequently asked questions. And the owner of this website addresses the issue where some repeater owners do not want their repeater listed here. And the answer that this guy has is essentially, your repeater is public by definitions. As soon as you get an FCC authorization, that is public information, or they don't want to disclose the locations. And so there is some fine print, but generally speaking, again, I don't want to get lost on this detail, but everybody is pretty willing to play, and it's rare that you'll run into issues. Okay.
Quick question. Do repeaters need to announce their call sign?
Yes.
And how do they do that?
Sometimes you tune it to a repeater and there is no traffic, and all of a sudden you hear a little bit of a burst of Morse code. That's the repeater announcing itself in Morse code. Sometimes it's Morse code. Sometimes it is some recorded voice. There is one repeater has the recorded voice of the talk radio host Lars Larson that says, this is repeater such and such, there are many ways, but yes, they have a requirement to announce itself. Okay. It's time, I needed to control my schedule here, 6:45. So once you get this, okay, so this is the a very plain query we did. And we just say, go in Oregon, show me all the 2 meters repeaters. But we can do better than that. If we go on the query page, we can also we can make queries by bands. We can make queries by feature. I want only the repeaters that are FM, or I only want to find the repeaters that are using the Icon proprietary D-Star digital capabilities, and so on. Or I want to see all the repeaters that are linked together. And so, for example, here shows the PRA, this group here, W7 PRA. If you click here, we get a list of all the ones associated and linked together. Okay. The Evergreen Intertie is another repeater group that has repeaters interlinked together. Or query by tags. All the repeaters that are tags as being designated repeater for Aries, click here. Or click here to see all the repeaters along Interstate 84. This could be useful for, or by town, blah, 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 blah. So what do? I use something called proximity search. I say, I am at this zip code, and I want to see all the repeaters on a radius of 25 miles. And which bands I'm interested. I have a hand transceiver that does only 2 meters and 70 centimeters. I thought that these could be, okay, 2 meters only. And I'm interested only in FM, and give me a list. And so search. And now I get the repeaters. I like to order them by frequency. And now I have a list that I want to have all these programmed into my thing, into my radio. How many? 25. Boom. Okay, so here there is, at this point, the export function. Okay, and so you can export this into a CSV file, and you tell, there is like a warning here says, please don't misuse this information, but okay. And it saved my thing. Let's open it. And now I get, you built your own spreadsheet, okay? And now with this, you can program by hand, or you can use Chirp. So let's take a look very quickly about Chirp. I went to that website and downloaded the software, install it, blah, 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 blah. This is Chirp, okay? And so with Chirp, now I can open a new, open a new, and now I can import that information from the file that I exported. I'm gonna just use a file that I have handy, and I'm gonna say I want to import all this frequency. Where do I want to start? I want to start from location 1, and boom. And so now my radio has memory slots, and all these are properly set with the proper values. And now I can go to my radio and I can say, upload it to my radio. Any questions?
Yes. Will it say if you've already downloaded some and then you get a new list, may have some extra, will it rewrite over your old ones, or do you need to erase the old ones?
Yeah, you need to play some games. Generally, you can shift, move down. So you can sort of, let's say that we pick these one. We want to make space for 10 new frequencies. Actually, yeah. Let's see. Let's take this entire block. Oh, well, okay. This is a bad example because, of course, I have filled it to the brim. But yes, you can do things like you can clear the frequencies. You can delete. You can move them up.
No, but if you download a new list
Yeah.
and you have the Chirp software and the chords or whatever to hook it up with your radio to import it, will it automatically overwrite like a computer disk could rewrite over something, or will it?
Yeah. So
Yeah.
when you do that with Chirp, it will overwrite whatever you have on the screen here, like what Marino's looking at on your radio. However, it is possible if you wanted to keep the frequencies and just add to the ones on your radio, you upload from the radio, or you download from the radio first into your laptop, then you add in the extra ones, and then you re-upload it. But yeah, when you upload to your radio, it writes over everything.
Okay.
Question. Is it just RT systems, or will Chirp start at a particular location? Can you tell it to start at slot 20?
Yes. Yes.
So if you wanted just to append, you just tell where you want to start the append from.
Yes. Let's set. I want to show you some other things here. For example, here you can say, we did an import from a file we exported from the website. Okay. That was what we just shown. But there are other ways you can import from a data source, or you can import from a stock config. For example, let's say that I wanted to include in my HT the US calling frequencies. I go here and say calling frequency, and it finds that the calling frequencies for 6 meter, 2 meter, 220, 70 centimeters. And then you can see it says that this is, if we click OK, it's going to go to memory slots 1, 2, 3, and 4. 1, 2, 3, and 4. But let's say I wanted these at location 10. I can just say plus 10, and this is changed to 11, 12, 13, 14. Okay. If I say OK, these show up at location 11. Is this what you were asking? Hello?
So where did you type the 14 or the plus 10 in? I missed that.
Okay, I'll do it again. Again, for example, import from stock config. I go US calling frequencies. Do you see? It shows you this, and it says these are the phone entries. They're gonna go 2 column, and these are the slots. So you can say adjust it to a new location. Let's say that you wanted to put a 21, 22, 23, 24. Look at here. I'm going to click 10 one time and 10 again. And now.
Okay, now I see. Thank you.
Okay.
Can I ask how many slots are there? Can you fill them up too much?
Well, it depends on the radio. Right now, we are starting with a blank templates, but the proper way to do this is first you download a memory image from your radio. And so here you can say, I have my Yaesu FTM, which is a mobile radio, and it's connected to my computer, and the serial port of my computer is this, and I have a cable, okay? And then this will tell you, turn the radio off, connect the cable, press and hold the key while you turn the radio on, then select the clone functions, then press OK. At that point, the radio will be ready to send the information to your computer. And the computer, after you click here, the computer will be listening, okay? Of course, this is not happening because I now got nothing to connect it at this moment. But you suck in the image from the radio into this, and then it generally tells you how many memory location you have. So for the Chinese inexpensive hand transceiver, usually that's 128 memory slots. For a good radio like the FT60R, with the one we recommended, which is a Yaesu hand transceiver that costs about $150, it has like 1,000, which is more than you need. Okay. But, some radios have more memory slots than others. Okay.
We do have if some of this is too fast for you, we do have a programming your radio topic that's coming up on February 25th. And so we'll very specifically go over chirp and RT systems during that meeting also. So it'll kind of be, this is kind of like a preview of that.
Yes. So I just want to show you a template that I did back in August last time. So what did I put in here? Actually, man. Let's see. Yes. So basically, look at what this is a template prepared for one of my radios. What did I put? I left the first slot open. I put the 2-meter calling sign, calling frequency. I put a bunch of simplex frequencies that are standard. Then I put the repeaters for Monoma County. Then I put the repeaters for Clackamas County, and so on. And then when I exhausted all these repeaters that were in the template we saw before, the one for emergency communication, and I went down all of here, I think from this point on, these are all repeaters that are available. I guess the message I'm trying to convey here is program as many repeaters as there are, because essentially it's like having channels on a TV. Sure, you might end up watching only 3 or 4, but when you need it to talk, you want to have those frequency programmed. And so at that point, once they are inside the memory of your radio, you press the scan button and the radio will do the work of finding the communications for you.
Okay, that was my question, is how do you access it? Say you're driving down Route 84 and you want to find the repeaters on that, and you've got, 500 channels programmed in. How do you find that?
That's an excellent question. We needed to set our expectations correctly. But let's mention this, which is very important. As you can see here, there are 2 icons. It says download the Repeater Book app on the App Store or on Google Play. So the guy that did this thing, this website, has also made an app where you can have all the information on this website always with your phone. So at worst, you should be able to take out your phone, get the app, start the app, and the phone will tell the app what is your location, and it will show you the most close repeater based on this database. Okay. But you do not have it programmed. At that point, you either program by hand, you use your radio, you follow the instructions in the manual, and you put all the information, and then you try to call. Or ahead of time, if you know where you're going, you come here and you extract from this database the information that you care. You say all the repeaters along I-84, and then you program the radio before starting the trip. You understand? So unfortunately, there is not such a magic where the radio automatically know which is the closest repeater.
Yes, that answered it. Thank you very much.
Yeah. And this is something that I wondered until it's not too hard, to program that feature. I don't know why the people that make radio haven't thought about this, to have like a little SD card where you can somewhat write a database, and then that is read by the radio, and based on the location, boom, you have a bank of memory that is dynamically assigned from the database. It should be possible. I do not understand.
Yeah, there is, Reno, there's the same company that does our Finder. They also build radios that you can buy. Unfortunately, they're not cheap. I think right now they start at $1,000, which in my opinion is just an absolutely ridiculous price for a handheld radio. They started this a few years ago, However, this one that Marino is showing is actually the only model that's still available. The other ones that they have put out, like the one that you see here, is actually no longer available. They're no longer making it. So I don't know if the company is still putting into R&D and manufacturing or not. It's a great idea, though. I think that it's definitely past due. Unfortunately, ham radio is it's about 10 to 20 years behind where everybody else is in electronics.
All right, sorry, I saw there are some messages on chat. Judy's asking, I just downloaded Chirp, but I can open it on my Mac laptop because the developer cannot be verified. There is a way you can right click on the installer and then say open anyway. At that point, the Mac is going to tell you, are you really sure that you want to install this thing? And you can go ahead and do that. So there are ways around that. And it's not necessarily that the Chirp software is bad or is untrustworthy. It's just that the people that write Chirp did not bother to follow the requirements that Apple puts on software developers to publish the software on the Apple Store. Okay, and Judy, I'm going to put my email address here. In case somebody have other question, I want to follow up offline. So there is a lot to talk here. So we said that, and so I guess the point is this: Repeater Book is where you can go and find all the information. You can do and query the information from here, and then you export it, and then you use a software like Chirp to essentially put in your radio. So here are a few tips. Tip number one, when you buy your radio, buy yourself a programming cable. And sometimes you can buy it. If you buy a radio HRO, they will sell you the programming cable, but usually they sell you also the software. RT System is a good software. Some people say that is, I never used it. Some people say it's very simple and more complete than Chirp. Chirp is more like a volunteer project, but it's free. So you choose where you want to go. Another good place that I feel plugging in for cables to go is this Valley Enterprises web store. They sell radios, but they also sell programming cables here. Two-way radios, programming cables. I personally bought all my programming cables from these guys. And so a programming cable, let's say you have a Yaesu, and essentially they give you programming cables for your radio, and usually they use this good quality FTDI chip that guarantees that the cable is going to work without problems. Sometimes there are imitation cables made in China where somebody has cloned a chip and the cable, sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't work because the software has been programmed to expressively not work with the cloned chip. So you don't want to get into that, but essentially a cable will cost you from as little as $7 or $8 for a Chinese Baofeng, for 25, 30 for one of these reputable ones, or if you go to HRO and sometimes buy brand ones, then it might cost you $60 or $80. But tip number one, get your programming cable. Tip number two, go to Chirp and see if your radio is supported. And where do you find if your radio is supported? You can look at this list here. But there is even a more exhaustive list, which is, let me see if I can find it. Is my radio supported? Okay, well, I remember seeing a more comprehensive list than the one that is on the front page, but that will suffice here, you know. So that's tip number 2. Tip number 3 is register with an account here in Repeater Book so you can log in and run the queries. And then the 4th tip is more like a philosophical take. Some people say, oh, I do not like to program my radio with my computer. must be in control. I must learn how to program the radio by hand. And it's a very good point, except that, you know, if you end up programming your radio with only 4 stations because you wanted to learn it, but it's, you know, it takes a while to program stuff, you might be missing out on things that happen somewhere else. So my recommendation is definitely study your radio, definitely learn how to program your radio, but also learn how to use Chirp and Repeater Book so that once all the frequencies of the repeaters are there, then you can hit the scan button and find the conversation as they happen. All right, I talked too much.
Thank you very much, Marino. Anybody have any questions on this particular topic, repeater directories, or any other ham radio related?
Hey Max, it's Jesse. I got a quick question for you guys on the repeater book. Can you cut and paste the CSV files to create one before you upload it into your radio?
Yes. Yeah, Marino, do you want to answer that?
Yes, you can.
Okay. I haven't tried it, but thanks.
You in Chirp, you just needed to, let me share a screen again. You needed to, so you can cut and paste, and so cut and paste works here off of the edit menu. You can import a file with this function, import, or you can build your list from a stock database of frequency. Oh, but also, I forgot to mention this, idiot that I am. You can have Chirp talk to Repeater Book. And so look at the proximity query that we did earlier on, that we did it on the website and use the export feature of the website. You can run it directly from here. You see it?
Yeah, no, that's great. Thank you.
Yeah, and you can do the same thing. And then you decide what to do. You can exclude the stuff, decide not to import it. You can change the order as we've seen before. Yeah, you need to play a little bit. There is this auto thing. Let's say that you exclude the sum entries here and you wanna rename, you can hit auto and it will essentially, you see this one is checked as 1. These are excluded, then the next one is going to be 2. So it's going to order the sequence in the way you want it. So you have to play with these increments and decrements and the auto. Yeah, and that will get you there.
So I have a question. If my radio has a number of frequencies programmed into it,
yes,
but they're in channels, how would I tell what frequency that channel is? Some of them are named, like W7RAT. I noticed that.
Yes.
How would I know what that is?
Yeah, generally, the radio has a button that switches from displaying the frequency or the so-called alpha tag associated with the frequency. And so you needed to look at the manual of your radio and see which combination of keys or menus or buttons allows you to display either the frequency or the alpha tag that you associate with the frequency, typically the call sign. And you can decide that, to keep it one way or another. And then usually there is a way to switch it temporarily so that you can see. So does it make sense?
I think so. I have the Yaesu 50 that you were talking about.
The FT60.
Yeah, FT60, but I looked at that table a little bit, but I wasn't quite sure what to do. But
there is a way. I think you needed to look for a band down, BANDDN, band down, and essentially that copies the frequency so you can see it on the display. And this
Okay.
is Jay, right?
Yeah. Mhm.
And Jay, I'll follow up with you. Write me in chat your email address, and then I'll follow up to point you to the right place.
Okay.
Marino, could he also in Chirp download into from his radio and then be able to see it in a spreadsheet form?
Of course, yes. But I thought he was asking. Dynamically, from the radio.
Right.
I was asking dynamically, but I have ordered a cable. It hasn't arrived yet, and I was planning on downloading Chirp to do exactly what the other gentleman was saying. But I was just wondering if I'm with my radio and don't have my cheat sheet with me, how do I tell?
Yeah, and maybe we can organize a night of Chirp programming where we share our screens over Zoom, and we go at it together.
Would be good. Thank you. This has really been a good session.
Okay.
Yeah.
And if we'd like to delete channels to make more room, or because we find we never use them or whatever, is that something we do through Chirp as well?
Yes. Essentially, you load up the file. The file shows you all the memory slots you have. And then it's like a spreadsheet. You go in and delete the content of the spreadsheet in a certain range. And you decide to shift up or maybe reuse and put more information in there. It's up to you. You compose your own programming. You have your own scheme. For example, the template that we saw earlier on, published by the Multnomah County Aries, is very strongly recommended. Why? Because they want their associates that use the radio for emergency communication to all go to the same channel. They might be at the same, location, memory slot, or they want to call it MC1, MC2. That's the reason why they use those codes, because they're established. But for your own radio, you might decide to to organize your radio the way you like it.
Yeah, great question. Anybody else questions on either Repeater or even just anything in general?
Do most radios have support for repeaters, or do we need to watch out for a specific feature name?
Max?
Yeah, most ham radios do have support for repeaters. And that's actually a great question, because a lot of times if you get the FRS radios, what they call bubble pack radios, even though there are GMRS repeaters, most of those types of radios do not have repeater support. But in general, if anything you buy at a ham radio outlet or just for a ham radio in general will have that support.
Yeah, you could run into trouble if you decided to go to a garage sale and buy a ham radio from the 50s where they didn't have a PL tones.
Yes.
So, but that's a fringe case, of course. We're not discussing that.
Yeah, thanks, Marina. Yeah, that's absolutely a good point, because anything bought in the last, I would say, 20 years would be fully supported. But you're right. So one of the first radios that I bought, I actually had to buy an accessory or a little board that I had to install in the radio to allow the radio to transmit and receive subaudible tones. So it's crazy ridiculous to think about that today because it's included in every radio. But that was kind of one of the ways that the radio companies used to make money. Colleen, did you have a question?
Yeah, we haven't bought our radios yet, so I was glad for the recommendation. Is there any reason to buy any accessories other than the cables for programming? I'm thinking specifically of an antenna. We're in a very hilly kind of area.
Yeah, that's a great question. So for antennas, if because you're part of this tonight's meeting, we will send an email out about future meetings, including the Portland Amateur Radio Club. And this next month's meeting on February, and it's the second February, the second Monday of every month. So that'll be February 8th. We're actually going to go show people how to build a simple antenna for about $10 to $20, depending on what material you already have. It's an external antenna, and it's a great great way to get an antenna for your handheld or your mobile radio, because the antenna will definitely extend your range, especially with a handheld, and especially if you use it inside the house. You can buy an antenna, and we have a couple examples that we can put into chat that
Little
antennas to
baby.
buy. A soup?
Little bender.
Oh, I'm sorry. Say that again. She may be talking to somebody else. The other thing that Marino is actually showing is a battery cartridge. Instead of it actually having the batteries in it, you can actually use rechargeable batteries for your radio. So I purchased 3 of these for, I think, $10 or $15. The best place to find something like that would just be eBay. And if you just type in FT60 battery holder, that will pop up. And it's simply just a piece of plastic that's shaped like a battery that you can put in either rechargeable or alkaline batteries. It doesn't necessarily fully replace the rechargeable battery. Some radios that have that feature that use AA, AAA batteries as kind of a spare may not transmit at the full 5 watts, and you certainly won't get the battery life that you would get from a rechargeable battery. But for kind of an emergency, especially if you're thinking about emergency communications or ARES or anything like that, it's definitely a good thing to have. The only other thing that I would think of is just like a handheld microphone or hand mic, which you see in the police officers, they clip it onto their lapel. I wouldn't say that that's something that you probably want to go out and buy right away. See if you have a need for it first. I do have one because I've been in the hobby for a long time, but to be honest with you, I can't even remember the last time I used it.
I would recommend it to stay away from radios that publish very strong transmission power of 8 watts on handheld, because these are 5 watts radio, and they are 5 watts because the FCC has put a limit on it. You don't want to have a super high strong communications very close to your noggin here. So
yeah,
just stick with the regular 5 watts. They're plenty. Other than that, I would say that a lot of people, when they're new, they orient themselves on buying hand transceivers because it makes sense. But if you don't think you're going to use the hand transceiver too much, look towards buying a mobile radio, which is a radio that you put in the car, but you can also keep it in the house. Those that have much more power, they require an external antenna, but your reach will be greatly extended, and they are more flexible. And so, consider buying a mobile radio. You will need to buy the radio and an external antenna, a cable, and a power supply.
And do you have a recommendation for a brand that you like or to stay away from?
The radio specifically, or
for mobile radios?
Mobile.
Mobile. Mobile radios. Again, this is kind of one of those places where you can buy a Chinese, like Anytone is an example. Also BTEC or Baofeng. I'm not trying to diss the radios, and I think that it is certainly fine to buy a handheld radio of that brand, because $25 to $35 isn't that expensive. When you get into the mobile radios, though, it probably wouldn't want to be your first mobile radio that you bought. The failure rate on it is, can be as high as 10 to 15%. I would stick with either ICOM, Kenwood, or Yaesu for the mobile radios. They are very specifically built for amateur radio, and they hold up very well, and they also come with a warranty. Oh, Dan, you have to unmute yourself.
We can also have a workshop on how to choose a radio.
Good. ICOM, Yaesu, and what was the third one you said?
Kenwood. Yep.
Okay. Thank you.
Yeah.
Are they all made overseas? Like Kenwood has sounding more of a English name. Are they all overseas from Japan or China?
So yeah, so Kenwood is the same radio. They're less popular now, but if you remember back in the 80s and 90s when hi-fi systems, Kenwood, the same company that makes those, makes ham radios. Yes, I mean I don't know of any ham radio that's made in the U.S. So the FT60, I believe, is made in China now. However, the higher priced Yaesu radios are made in Japan. It's a Japanese company. But Kenwood and ICOM, I think that they're all made in China. They just have a little bit more strict quality control than some of the other radios. The Baofengs, like the handheld and the other radios, it's hard to even tell if they come from the same factory in China. Because anybody can slap on a Baofeng label and sell the radio.
Max, tisk.
Yeah.
Dan is going to excommunicate you from the Church of Elecraft if you say that there are no good radios made in the USA.
Yeah, I guess I should say that that's for VHF, UHF. There are radios, HF radios made in the US. Yeah. Thanks, Marino.
Yes, there is Elecraft is made in California. Flex Radio is a company based in Texas, and there are other minor companies also in the Northwest and nationwide.
Yeah, and those are for HF radios. We will have one of the topics coming up is HF radio, which is very different from VHF. HF radio is the one that you can talk worldwide. Colleen asked a question in chat if the meetings are being recorded. Yes, they are. So in fact, thank you for bringing that up, Colleen, because I just put them up a few days ago, and I want to send you guys in the link the specific page on the Portland Amateur Radio Club website where you can actually go back and view any of the radios. It takes me a couple days to put the radio up because it takes a lot of time to process. But if you missed a session, just go back and watch the video if you like.
When is the meeting going to be? You said for the antennas, antenna workshop, or
that is going to be February 8th, and it's going to be at 7 o'clock.
And you'll send out an email or link on that, and that's through the Portland Amateur Radio Club?
Yeah, so if you registered for either this session or you've registered for any Portland Amateur Radio Club meeting or another beginner ham meeting, then you'll get an email. I use MailChimp to send all the invites out. And if anybody ever gets tired of receiving the emails or doesn't want to participate anymore, there's an unsubscribe link at the bottom. Just realize that once you unsubscribe, you won't get any emails for anything, from me at least.
Yeah, is it going to be more about building your own antenna? Is it going to be also where you could buy one, or let's talk about mag mounts, or is it going to be J poles, or all those kind of going to be talked about or included in this meeting, or?
No, the meeting will be specifically on the one that was featured in the October issue of QST, and they call it a
copper pole.
Yeah, I mean, basically, I nicknamed it barber pole, but it's because that's what it looks like. But it's a copper foil wrapped around a PVC pipe that you can build. However, we won't have like a big discussion on other types of antennas. However, if you have any questions, like you want some recommendations for ones that you can buy, we certainly can give those here, or you can email either Marino or I. Just let us know. Are you looking for specifically?
Is there a list of what the topics were for all the previous meetings and a schedule for the topics for the future ones?
Yes, that's a great question. So I will post that up on the website in the next day or two. We've actually only just started to do topics starting from, sorry, give me a second. Last week. So last week, real easy list. Last week was CTCSS, or Continuous Tone Coded Squelch System. And that was the tones that are transmitted by or received by your radio to access repeaters. And then next week's meeting is going to be radio etiquette. So kind of how to properly, and politely talk on repeaters, simplex, HF, things like that. Dealing with other people that maybe aren't as well-mannered on the radio is also going to be another topic next week.
I also want to make a comment to encourage you to participate and ask questions, because unfortunately the topic here is always, you can start talking and never end.
Mm-hmm.
And that causes essentially these meetings to be one-sided. We talk and talk and talk. And frankly, that's not why we are doing this, is to start a dialogue with you guys and make sure that you get what you want out of this. So also, we are not super professionals. We might try to prepare stuff, but there might be some information that is not 100% correct, So just to be skeptical and ask questions and participate. So that makes it more fun.
Max, or Marino, whichever one can answer this. You said on the next antenna one is a hopper foiled wrapped around PVC pipe, and it was in what kind of magazine, or could you get that from the library to try to read about it ahead of time? Or
QST. QST is a monthly magazine published by the ARRL, Amateur Radio Relay League, which is the National Association of Amateur Radio Operators.
And that was from the October magazine, you said, or was that correct?
I think
Yes.
this October. Okay.
Yeah, October, and it's on the page 30.
So if you agree to spend $40 a year, you can become an ARRL member, which basically provides a support at the politics level to lobby for amateur radio interests, but also gets you a monthly magazine where you can get a lot of commercial about radios that are sold, but also you get some nice projects. So I would say it's a good investment if you are committed to see it through. You become a subscriber for 1 year and a member and see what it does, and perhaps you decided to stay with it. So this is the magazine QST.
Okay.
Yeah, it's a really good. The price went up to, I think, $49 a year, but it's a really good organization to join. They've made some changes where they are now allowing you to access all 4 of their magazines for the same $49 per year, which is a super deal if you want to learn a lot about ham radio. Their magazine by far is one of the best ones to kind of pick up and peruse. A lot of it may go over your head, but eventually a lot of it will stick too.
We should also mention that starting this year, the ARRL has started a new magazine called On the Air for beginners. And it is specifically targeted for people that are just starting, and it goes over these things that we're discussing, now. Even for that would be a great investment. And when you subscribe, you decide on the form you want to receive a QST or On the Air, and you can get QST and then read On the Air online, because it's equally available through a web login, or you can get the paper On the Air and then read the QST online. So you have both options.
Marino, this is Jesse. I did join, and I'm getting that On the Air magazine, and it's pretty awesome. The articles, I'm new to this. I can understand them, so I like that. It's not too far over my head, but they talk about how to make things and little projects for $20 and antennas. And so I'd recommend it. It's good for my level right now because I can actually understand what I'm reading.
Yeah,
I like it.
Thank you for chipping in and let us know that. Yeah.
And I'll put the website up for everybody. It's just ARRL.org. and that's their front page. And from there, you can look at their magazines. You can even download a sample issue.
How many people here are still not licensed there and are in the progress of studying for the license? Or okay, Colleen is one. Let's see. Okay, cool.
And does your club have I know our CERT team, we had a J-pole antenna building party this before COVID started.
Yeah.
And I can't remember if it was $20 or $25 or something in one guy's garage, and he had the soldering guns and everything. And so we made, J-pole, which has helped my little handheld immensely. And I was curious, how does that compare with this barber pole or type thing? Are they kind of comparable, or is one easier to take if you want to go out in the field somewhere, the PVC pipe one, or easier? Or?
Yeah, so I would say that some of the differences, the J-pole typically tends to be dual band, so it's 2 meters and 440, whereas the barber pole antenna is specifically just for 2 meters. That being said, remember 2 meters is by far the most popular band. The other nice thing about the one that we're going to build next month is it is very lightweight. J-poles, they do come in lighter weight forms, but like for example the roll-up Marina was talking about. But the heavier ones made out of copper pipe tend to be a little bit heavier. You would need to have something solid to mount it on, whereas the one we're going to build next month, you could actually easily put it up on a painter's pole or something if you wanted to be mobile with it.
Okay, sounds interesting. Look forward to it.
Yeah.